Hello, I'm Adrian Cudby and I'm the author of Commercial Lending Principles and Practice. So, first thing I want to talk about is how to structure a lending proposition. And I'm very much focusing here on businesses talking to their bankers. So, the first thing to think about is if you're wanting to borrow money as a commercial customer, giving yourself the best chance of getting approval from the bank first time. Banks' main concern when they lend you money is that they're not going to get that money back. So what can you do to make your banker's life easier? The first thing is be structured. Your bank's going to use some kind of template, and that's so they can cover the main risk areas. It may not match exactly the structure you might put into place, but it will be near. So one of the structures that I use, and I use in the book, is something called PARTSI. So it's P-P-A-R-T-S-I. And what does that stand for? It's a mnemonic, and it's something that is easy to remember so that when you're thinking of putting something together, you can remember all the key components. So the first thing is person, and that's you. That's who is running the business. It's the business itself. The next bit is purpose. What do you want the money for? Sounds very basic, but you need to be able to articulate that. The next thing is amount. How much do you want to borrow? Is it enough? Often customers forget when they're putting lending propositions that if they want to borrow, say, money for capital expenditure like a new machine or buying a new workshop or a factory, they forget the capital elements, they forget the working capital elements. Repayment. How are you going to repay this? This is the bit where you'll use your financial information and you'll demonstrate to the bank how exactly you're going to repay the money they're going to lend you. The next is term. Again, a very basic thing, but how long do you want the money for? If it's for a machine, the bank will probably lend it over the life of the machine, say 5 years. Security. Commercial bankers will want to take security. And income. This is from the bank's point of view. Think realistically about how much money the bank is going to want to make and be realistic about the level of interest and charges that you think the bank is going to charge you and build that into your proposition. So, the next thing I want to talk to you about is think about a proposition as a jigsaw. The bank needs to get those pieces to fit together. And often businesses wonder what the most important elements of those jigsaw are. It's a difficult question to answer as a lending proposition needs to be considered holistically. So a mistake that businesses often make is they just focus on the numbers. And whilst this is a vital element, it's only one part of that jigsaw. So let's think about some of the key elements that you as a business need to think about. So the first thing would be management, and linking back to my mnemonic of PARTSI, that's person. So think about the business. What do banks want? What do they want to see? Well, they're going to want to see you as energetic, enthusiastic, as resilient, because if you're not enthusiastic about your business, then who else is going to be? The bank will look for skills that are appropriate to running the business. And often, and this is in my personal experience, the finance function, i.e. running the accounts, running the numbers, running the money, is the bit that's neglected. And as businesses grow, they need a good financial controller or financial director. That's the bit you need to convince the bank that you have that in place. And if you don't, who are you using, external accountants, etc., to cover it? The next thing I want to talk about is the ability to repay. Businesses usually fail because they run out of cash, not because they run out of profits. And any proposition you put to the bank needs to demonstrate that throughout the life of that loan that you will be able to repay that borrowing and you'll have the cash reserves to do so. So cash flow projections need to be realistic and they need to take into account external factors such as interest rates. We've had a very, very benign, relatively benign environment since the financial crisis in terms of interest rates, but interest rates could well, over the next 5 to 10 years, rise, and therefore the banks will want to see that you can still repay your borrowing. The next thing I want to cover is security. banks won't normally lend to commercial customers without security. So if you're borrowing for an asset, let's say it's a machine or commercial premises, the bank will want to take that as security. So you still own it, but they will take what's called a charge over it. And the final thing to think about security, banks never lend 100%. That's not what they will do. They will lend you 60 or 65%, say, of their commercial premises, and therefore you're going to need to find the cash difference, and that will be seen as a very positive thing by the bank in terms of your contribution. So what does all this mean to you as a customer wanting to borrow money? Well, you need to put all of these elements together in a coherent plan which makes sense and covers all of those key issues. And if you do, you will have a much better chance of being able to have success in borrowing money from your bank.